Hi class. In this video we're going to look at some examples of how to calculate inventory using various methods. So this is similar to your homework for chapter 6. So we've got some data here. We've got some inventory amounts and our costs. For our beginning inventory we've got 3 purchases it looks like. And then it says for the entire year the company sells 440 units of inventory for $64 each. So then as we progress, we're going to see that we're going to calculate our cost of goods available for sale, our cost of goods sold, and our ending inventory values with using various methods. And the first one we're going to use is FIFO. So for FIFO, we're going to calculate our cost of goods available for sale. So to do that, we're going to take our amounts here and just transfer them down. So we've got beginning inventory. Almost see it all at the same time. 54 units. Our cost per unit was $46, and thankfully it's calculating our cost of goods available for sale. So we're just going to do that for all 3 of the purchases. Just type in the amounts that were given. And that is all there is to that section. So you should see the totals in that section should match the totals that you have up here because we just plugged those same numbers in. So our cost of goods sold is where we have to decide which items we're going to sell, and that depends on what method we're using. So if we're using FIFO, that means that we're selling the first ones in first. So first in, first out. So we sold 440 units. We're going to start with the oldest units and sell until we get to the 440 mark. So the number of units that we can sell of the oldest items are actually the number that there are. So there was 46 units in the beginning inventory that we could sell, and those were actually the oldest units, so that's what we're going to start with. So I'm going to actually kind of keep a running total. So on my calculator I've got 440 units. And I'm going to take out 46 because I've now accounted for those. So that leaves me 394 to go. Oops, and that is wrong. That should be 54 units. I'm looking at the dollar amount. So 54 units is what we sold. So we're going to take 440 units minus 54 units. And if I could work my calculator, 386 units left. So we can move down to the next layer, and we need to sell 386 more. There's actually 134 units here, so we're going to get rid of all of those. And I'm going to subtract those on my calculator just to kind of keep a running total. So at this point I need to account for 252 units to sell, which means I will sell all 204 of those. So I'm going to type that in, and I'm going to subtract that out on my calculator. And it looks like at that point, if I take the 440 minus all of these 54, all of those 134, and all of those 204, that leaves me with 48 more units that I need to account for as far as selling. So there's 114 units here, and I'm just going to sell 48 of those. So basically, I started at the top and just worked my way down through each layer until I reached 440 units. So if we add those together, the number of units that we sold should be 440 units. And let's see, we're not cooperating here. It looks like they want us to add these things together, so let's try that. So we've got 2484 and 6432 and 10,404 and 2,496. So each of those layers should be our total cost of goods sold, which is $21,816. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. And let's just check our work before we go forward to make sure we don't have any strange errors that we don't need to have in our spreadsheet. All right, so that's what I've got so far. All right, so in our ending inventory, we're just going to put what's left. So in the first layer, we had 54, we sold 54, we now have 0. And the second, on the April the 7th purchase, we had 134, sold 134, so we got 0. And the next line, we had 204, sold 204, so we've got 0 left. In the last line, we had 114, and we sold 48, which gives us 66 of those left, and it carried over the price because the price doesn't change. So our ending inventory should be the 66 units that we have left, and the value of those 66 units is the total of this, which is just that one number, just 3432. And again, let's just make sure. And internet slow today. So yours should look something like that. And then you've got a little box down here. So your sales revenue would be the number of items sold, which is 440, times the sales price, which was, I think, 64 right here. And your gross profit would be your sales revenue less your cost of goods sold, which is right there. All right, let's look at the next one. So it says using LIFO calculate ending inventory cost of goods sold, blah, blah, blah. So kind of the same process. So just kind of a hint, this cost of goods available for sale, regardless of what method you're going to use, is going to be the same. So it should look just like this. So let's just bring that down. And let's see. So I kind of cheated and took a picture of the first one so I could just type it in. So we've got 54 units, 134, 204, and 114. So we should have a total of 506 units available. Paid 46 for those, 48 for the next layer, and 51 and 52. So you should notice that all of this stuff is the same as the FIFO. So when we get to the cost of goods sold, we're going to actually do the opposite with LIFO as we did FIFO. So with LIFO, we're actually selling the last ones first. So we're going to start at the bottom, and we sold 440, I think? Yes. So I'm going to get my handy dandy calculator out, and I'm going to put 440 in it. And we're going to start down here and work our way up. So we're going to sell 440, and we're going to sell the newest ones first. There's 114 here. We can sell all of those. Then we need to sell all of those. So I'm going to subtract that from my 440, and that gives me 326 left to sell. So that would mean that I can sell all 204 of these. And that gives me 122 left to sell, which means I can take the whole 122 out of this one. And then that leaves me with 0 up here. So when I add those together, and hopefully I did my math right, we should have 440 that we sold, and our cost would be the total of those columns. So you get 56 and 10,404 and 5,928 is 22,188. Hopefully if I did my math right. And then our ending inventory, we're just going to put what's left. So we sold the newest ones first. So in the bottom, we sold all of those. The next layer up, we sold all of those. In this one, we had 134 to start with, and we sold 122, which leaves us with 12. And then we sold none of these, so we have all 54 of those left. So we've got 54s, that's 66 left, and our ending inventory is 2484 plus 576. All right, so again, let's just make sure before we go forward. So yours should look something like that. And And again, there's your sales revenue and gross profit. You're going to go about that process the same way as you did with FIFO. A couple of things to point out, and I've already pointed out that this first part is the same no matter what you do. The cost of goods sold and the ending inventory, the values are going to be different, but the actual number of items is not going to change. So if you sold 440 items, then it's going to be 440 items under here, regardless if it's LIFO, FIFO, whatever. And then your ending inventory, if you had 66 left under one inventory valuation, you're going to have 66 left in all of them. It just will be a different 66. All right, so let's look at the next one. So here we've got, it says use weighted average, calculate ending inventory, cost of goods sold, sales revenue, and gross profit. So for this one, we've actually got our information filled in. So to figure a weighted average, we're just going to figure out an average cost for each of these 506 units. So we're going to do that, we're going to take the 25,248 and divide it by 506 units. And that gives me a average cost of mine is $49.90, and it says to 4 decimal places. So when you take this and you divide it by the units, when you type in average cost per unit and you carry it 4 decimals, so mine's 49.8972. Oh, and I guess it wants it there as well. And then our number of units sold, as I said, is the same regardless of what method you use. And the number of units left is the same regardless of what unit you use or what method you use. All right, and I'm going to check that to make sure it's satisfied with my rounding strategy before we do the math. Yes, so at that point, you're just going to do the math. So here you would multiply 440 times 49.8972, and that's going to give you your total cost of goods sold. And here you're going to multiply your ending inventory times the average cost per unit, which will give you your ending inventory. And then number 12 is just a question about that. So you should notice one more thing. Let's just go ahead and do this math because I want to show you something. So 440 times 49.8972 it's like $21,954, and I'm not sure about if we are to round here or not, so let's just try it. It looks like it's going to round itself. So hopefully that won't give you an error for rounding. And then 66 times 49.8972 looks like $3,293 on that one. So weighted average is an average, uses an average cost of all these items to come up with, to be used for the cost of goods sold and ending inventory. So what you should see is that you end up with a cost of goods sold weighted average and an ending inventory average that falls somewhere between these amounts for FIFO and LIFO. So let's just look at it. For our ending inventory in FIFO, we've got 3,432. LIFO, we got 3,060. And weighted average, we got 3,293. So you see that kind of falls in the middle. And that's because it's basically an average strategy of getting those amounts. So it might not fall exactly in the middle depending on what you sold, but it should be somewhere in the middle, and so should the cost of goods sold amount as well. So that's how you're going to calculate your inventory valuations and your cost of goods sold using various inventory methods. As always, if you need assistance, feel free to ask.